Every single day, you walk through a minefield of emotional traps designed to hijack your reasoning, derail your purpose, and pull you away from the life you are trying to build. These traps do not announce themselves. They do not come with warning labels. They disguise themselves as legitimate feelings, justified reactions, and reasonable responses. By the time you realize you have been caught, you have already wasted hours or days of mental energy, damaged relationships that matter, or made decisions you will regret. The ancient Stoics understood something that modern psychology is only beginning to rediscover: that most of our suffering is self-inflicted, created not by external events but by our automatic, untrained reactions to those events. And they developed a systematic method for recognizing and outsmarting these emotional traps before they can take hold. Here is what most people never realize: your emotions are not neutral observers reporting objective truth about reality. They are interpretive systems, running on outdated programming, shaped by evolutionary pressures that no longer match your current environment, and influenced by past wounds that have nothing to do with present circumstances. When you feel intense anger, crushing anxiety, or desperate neediness, you are not receiving accurate information about the world. You are receiving one possible interpretation, filtered through layers of biological impulse, psychological conditioning, and personal history. The Stoics called this recognition the foundation of wisdom. Before we continue deeper into this exploration, I need you to consider something. How many of your recent decisions were made from a place of clarity and reason versus from a place of emotional reaction? And if you are ready to develop the awareness that allows you to see emotional traps before you step into them, then what comes next will fundamentally change how you navigate life. Epictetus taught his students a practice that seems simple but is revolutionary in its implications. He told them to pause before reacting to any impression and say to it, "You are just an appearance, and not at all what you appear to be." This single practice, consistently applied, dismantles the power of emotional traps. Because emotional traps work by convincing you that your immediate reaction is the truth, that your interpretation is reality, that you must act on what you are feeling right now. When you create even a brief pause and recognize that your reaction is just one possible interpretation, you break the automatic chain from stimulus to response. You create space for wisdom to enter. Let us map the territory we are about to explore. There are certain emotional traps that catch almost everyone, regardless of intelligence, education, or life experience. The trap of immediate anger when you feel disrespected. The trap of anxiety spiraling when you face uncertainty. The trap of jealousy when you perceive someone getting what you wanted. The trap of despair when things do not go according to your plan. The trap of neediness when you feel disconnected from others. Each of these traps has a distinctive signature, a pattern of thoughts and physical sensations that precedes the full emotional hijacking. And once you learn to recognize these signatures, you can interrupt the pattern before it controls you. The Stoics were not advocating for the elimination of emotion. This is perhaps the most common misunderstanding of Stoic philosophy. They experienced the full range of human feeling: love, grief, joy, disappointment. What they rejected was being controlled by emotion, allowing immediate feeling to dictate thought and action without the intervention of reason. Marcus Aurelius felt deep sadness at the death of loved ones, but he did not let that sadness prevent him from fulfilling his duties. Seneca experienced fear in the face of danger, but he did not let that fear control his choices. They developed what we might call emotional intelligence, the ability to feel fully while thinking clearly. The first major emotional trap is the trap of personalization. This is the tendency to interpret neutral or ambiguous events as being about you, as attacks on your worth or status. Someone does not respond to your message immediately, and you assume they are ignoring you out of disrespect. A woman seems distracted during a conversation, and you interpret it as lack of interest in you. A colleague receives praise that you did not receive, and you take it as evidence that you are undervalued. The Stoic antidote to personalization is the practice of considering alternative explanations. Marcus Aurelius would regularly remind himself that people act from their own internal logic, their own pressures and problems, most of which have nothing to do with him. When you catch yourself personalizing, the Stoic practice is to list 3 alternative explanations that have nothing to do with you. She did not respond because she is dealing with a family crisis. He seemed distracted because he got difficult news earlier. The colleague received praise because they worked on a project you were not involved in. This practice is not about lying to yourself or making excuses for others. It is about recognizing that you do not have complete information, and that your immediate interpretation is often the least accurate one because it is filtered through your insecurities and past wounds. The second major trap is catastrophizing, the tendency to immediately jump to worst-case scenarios and treat them as inevitable. You make a mistake at work and immediately spiral into the certainty that you will be fired, become unemployable, and end up destitute. A woman you are interested in does not seem responsive, and you conclude that you will die alone. You feel a pain in your body and convince yourself it is a terminal illness. The Stoics called this suffering in advance, and considered it one of the most destructive mental habits a person could develop. Seneca wrote that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. He pointed out that most of the catastrophes we worry about never happen, and of those that do happen, most are far less severe than we imagined. The Stoic practice for catastrophizing is twofold. First, you test the probability of your worst-case scenario actually occurring. What evidence do you have that this catastrophe is likely? Often, you will find you have no evidence at all, just fear. Second, even if the worst case were to happen, you practice asking yourself how you would handle it. The Stoics regularly practiced premeditation of adversity, imagining difficulties in advance not to create anxiety but to build confidence that they could handle whatever came. The third major emotional trap is the comparison trap. This is the endless measuring of yourself against others, the constant evaluation of whether you are ahead or behind, winning or losing, better or worse. In our current age of social media, this trap has become more potent and pervasive than ever before. You scroll through feeds seeing curated highlight reels of others' lives and feel inadequate. You see someone achieving what you have been working toward and feel like a failure. You notice someone with advantages you lack and feel bitter or resentful. The Stoics identified this trap 2,000 years ago and provided clear antidotes. Epictetus taught that you should concern yourself only with what is in your control, your own thoughts, choices, and actions. Everything else, including what others achieve or possess, is outside your control and therefore not a valid basis for your peace of mind. When you catch yourself in the comparison trap, the Stoic practice is to redirect your attention to your own progress. Are you better than you were yesterday? Are you living according to your values? Are you developing your character? These are the only meaningful measures of your life. Everyone else is walking a different path with different starting points, different challenges, and different destinations. Their progress or lack thereof has no bearing on yours. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the person who is angry at others for their faults is like someone who is angry at a fig tree for producing figs. People are what they are. Some have developed further than others. Some have had advantages you did not have. Some have worked harder in certain areas. None of this diminishes you unless you allow it to. The Stoic recognizes that there will always be someone stronger, smarter, wealthier, more attractive, or more successful in any given domain. This is simply the nature of reality. fighting against this reality by resenting those who have more as pointless self-torture. The fourth major trap is the trap of emotional reasoning, believing that because you feel something strongly, it must be true. You feel anxious about a situation, so you conclude the situation is dangerous. You feel attracted to someone, so you conclude they are right for you. You feel angry at someone, so you conclude they wronged you. The Stoics understood that feelings are information, but they are not always accurate information. They are influenced by factors you are not consciously aware of: your blood sugar levels, your sleep quality, your hormonal state, your unprocessed trauma from years ago. The antidote to emotional reasoning is the practice of examining the thoughts that produce the emotion. The Stoics recognized that emotions do not arise spontaneously from nowhere. They arise from beliefs and interpretations, most of which happen so quickly you do not notice them. When you feel intense emotion, pause and ask yourself, what am I telling myself about this situation? What interpretation am I making? What belief is driving this feeling? Often, you will discover that the emotion is based on assumptions that do not hold up under examination. You feel anxious because you are assuming something terrible will happen, but when you examine that assumption, you realize you have no evidence for it. The fifth trap is the trap of urgency, the feeling that you must act immediately, that you must respond right now. That delay will result in disaster. This trap is particularly powerful in conflicts and confrontations. Someone says something that triggers you, and you feel the immediate impulse to respond, to defend yourself, to attack back. Someone does something that frustrates you, and you feel you must address it immediately. An opportunity appears, and you feel you must seize it now or lose it forever. The Stoics understood that acting from urgency usually leads to poor decisions and regrettable actions. Seneca's advice was to delay decisions and responses when possible, to let the heat of the moment pass before acting. He wrote that anger is temporary madness, and that we should never make important decisions while in its grip. The Stoic practice is to create space between stimulus and response. When you feel the urgency to act, that is precisely the moment to pause. Take a breath, take a walk, sleep on it if possible. This does not mean you never act decisively or quickly. It means you act from choice and clarity rather than from reactive compulsion. If this exploration of emotional traps is providing value, consider subscribing to this channel, where we apply ancient wisdom to the practical challenges of modern life, helping you build the awareness and discipline to live on your own terms. The sixth trap is the trap of rumination, the endless replay of past events or obsessive worry about future scenarios. You replay a conversation that went badly, thinking about what you should have said. You obsess over someone who rejected you, trying to figure out what went wrong. You rehearse future confrontations or difficult situations over and over in your mind. The Stoics recognized rumination as one of the mind's most destructive habits because it masquerades as productive thinking when it is actually just self-torture. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to stay present, to focus on the task at hand, to release the past and not project into the future. His famous phrase, "You have power over your mind, not outside events," applies perfectly to rumination. You cannot change the past by thinking about it endlessly. You cannot control the future by worrying about it obsessively. What you can do is bring your attention back to this present moment and the choices available to you right now. The Stoic practice is to notice when you are ruminating and consciously redirect your attention to something productive or present. The seventh trap is the trap of righteousness, the certainty that you are right and others are wrong, the addiction to being morally superior, the need to correct and educate everyone who does not see things your way. This trap is particularly seductive because it feels good. It gives you a sense of importance and moral clarity. But the Stoics understood that righteousness is often ego dressed in the costume of principle. It creates conflict where none is necessary. It damages relationships that could be valuable. And it blinds you to your own flaws and limitations. Epictetus taught that we should be quick to examine our own faults and slow to judge others. He pointed out that everyone is doing the best they can with their current level of understanding, and that judging them harshly does not help them improve, it only inflates your ego. When you catch yourself in the trap of righteousness, the Stoic practice is to ask yourself, am I trying to help this person or prove my superiority? Am I actually right or just attached to being right? Is this disagreement important enough to damage this relationship? Often, you will discover that your righteousness is serving your ego more than it is serving truth or virtue. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we should be tolerant with others and strict with ourselves. This is the opposite of how most people operate. Most people are endlessly forgiving of their own flaws while harshly judging others. The Stoic reverses this. You hold yourself to high standards because that is in your control. You extend patience and understanding to others because their development is their responsibility, not yours. This does not mean you tolerate abuse or maintain relationships with people who consistently violate your boundaries. It means you do not need everyone to agree with you or alive according to your standards in order for you to maintain your peace. The eighth trap is the trap of nostalgia, the belief that the past was better than the present, that you have lost something precious that cannot be recovered, that your best days are behind you. This trap can be particularly powerful for men who have experienced success followed by failure, or who look back on youth with longing. The Stoics understood nostalgia as a failure to accept the reality of change. Nothing stays the same. The person you were is not the person you are. The circumstances that existed before no longer exist. Clinging to the past prevents you from engaging fully with the present. Seneca wrote that life is divided into 3 periods: past, present, and future. Of these, the present is brief, the future is uncertain, and the past is certain but gone. Wasting mental and emotional energy on what cannot be changed is irrational. The Stoic practice when you notice nostalgia arising is to acknowledge what was valuable about the past without making it superior to the present. You can appreciate what you had without needing it back. You can learn from the past without living in it. And you can use your current circumstances, whatever they are, as raw material for building something meaningful. The ninth trap is the trap of perfectionism, the belief that you must be flawless, that any mistake or failure reflects fundamental inadequacy, that you must wait until conditions are perfect before acting. This trap prevents more people from achieving their potential than almost any other. It masquerades as high standards when it is actually fear of judgment. The Stoics were committed to excellence, but they were equally committed to accepting human limitation. They understood that perfect wisdom, perfect virtue, and perfect execution are ideals to strive toward but never fully achieve. Epictetus taught that we are students in the school of life, and students are expected to make mistakes. That is how learning happens. Marcus Aurelius regularly acknowledged his own flaws and failures in his meditations, not to beat himself up but to maintain realistic self-awareness. The Stoic practice for perfectionism is to embrace what they called amor fati, love of fate, acceptance of reality as it is. You do your best with what you have, where you are, and you accept the results without self-condemnation. Progress, not perfection. Constant improvement, not flawless execution. The 10th trap is the trap of validation seeking, making others' approval or recognition necessary for your sense of worth and direction. You make decisions based on what will impress others. You pursue goals because they come with status rather than because they align with your values. You feel deflated when your efforts go unrecognized. You measure your success by others' reactions rather than by your own standards. The Stoics identified this as perhaps the most common form of slavery, being controlled by the opinions of others. Marcus Aurelius, who had more reason than most to care about public opinion as Emperor of Rome, constantly reminded himself that the opinions of others should hold no power over his internal state. He wrote that if someone can make you angry, they have power over you. If someone's approval determines your happiness, they control you. The Stoic practice is to develop internal rather than external validation. You set your own standards based on your values. You evaluate yourself against those standards. You make peace with the fact that some people will approve and others will not, and that their approval or disapproval says more about them than about you. Now that we have mapped 10 major emotional traps, let us discuss the systematic method for outsmarting them before they catch you. The Stoics developed a practice they called prosoche, mindful attention or vigilance. This is the foundation of all emotional intelligence. You train yourself to observe your own mental and emotional states with the same clarity that you might observe the weather or traffic patterns. You notice when you are starting to get activated, when certain thoughts are beginning to spiral, when particular emotions are starting to take hold. And you interrupt the pattern before it fully develops. The practice of prosoche requires that you become familiar with your own patterns. What triggers you? What situations consistently activate certain emotional responses? What time of day are you most vulnerable to particular traps? What physical states, hunger, fatigue, stress, make you more susceptible? The Stoics kept detailed journals not just of events but of their own reactions to events, and through this practice they developed sophisticated self-knowledge. You must do the same. Track your emotional patterns. Notice what precedes your reactive states. Identify the early warning signs that you are heading toward a trap. Once you can recognize the early signs, the next step is to implement what the Stoics called the discipline of assent. This is the practice of withholding automatic agreement with your initial impressions and reactions. When the thought arises, "She is disrespecting me," you do not automatically assent to that interpretation. You hold it at arm's length and examine it. Is that interpretation true? Is it the only possible interpretation? Is it helpful? This pause for examination is where wisdom lives. Most people give immediate assent to every thought and feeling that arises, never questioning whether it is accurate or useful. The discipline of assent becomes easier with a technique the Stoics called view from above. When you are caught in an emotional response, you are typically identified with it. You are your anger, your anxiety, your jealousy. The view from above is the practice of stepping back mentally and observing yourself as if from a distance. You might visualize yourself from across the room, or imagine how this situation will look a year from now, or picture yourself as one person among billions on a planet in a vast universe. This shift in perspective immediately reduces the intensity of emotion and restores access to reason. Another powerful technique is the Stoic practice of negative visualization combined with acceptance. When you feel yourself getting caught in an emotional trap, let's say anxiety about something going wrong, you practice imagining it actually going wrong and asking yourself how you would handle it. Not in a catastrophizing way, but in a practical, problem-solving way. If this fear came true, what would you do? Usually, you discover that you would handle it, that it would not destroy you, that you have resources and resilience you are not acknowledging. This recognition deflates the power of the anxiety. The Stoics also practiced what we might call cognitive reframing, deliberately changing the interpretation of events to more empowering or accurate ones. Someone cuts you off in traffic. The automatic interpretation might be, "That person is a selfish jerk." The reframe might be, "That person is rushing to an emergency," or "That person is having a terrible day," or simply, That is someone making a mistake, as I have made many mistakes. This is not about being naive or making excuses for bad behavior. It is about not adding unnecessary anger and stress to your life by interpreting every negative event in the most personal and dramatic way possible. Physical practices also support the Stoic method of outsmarting emotional traps. The Stoics understood that mind and body are interconnected, that your physical state influences your emotional susceptibility. When you are tired, hungry, or physically tense, you are much more likely to fall into emotional traps. The practice here is straightforward. Maintain your physical foundation. Get adequate sleep, eat properly, exercise regularly, practice breath control, especially in moments of activation. A few slow, deep breaths can interrupt an emotional hijacking before it takes full hold. The Stoics also advocated for regular practice of voluntary discomfort as a way of building emotional resilience. When you regularly expose yourself to cold, hunger, physical exertion, or other manageable discomforts, you train your nervous system not to panic at the first sign of difficulty. You build confidence in your ability to handle discomfort, which reduces anxiety about future challenges. This practice makes you less reactive because you have proven to yourself that you can tolerate difficulty without being destroyed by it. Let us also discuss the importance of developing a personal morning practice based on Stoic principles. Marcus Aurelius would begin each day by reminding himself of the difficulties he might face and preparing himself mentally to handle them with virtue and wisdom. Your morning practice might include reviewing your values and intentions for the day, practicing the view from above to gain perspective, reminding yourself of what is in your control and what is not, and mentally rehearsing how you will respond to potential challenges. This practice sets the tone for the day and primes your awareness to catch emotional traps before they catch you. Throughout the day, the Stoics recommended regular check-ins with yourself. Pause periodically and ask, how am I doing? What is my current emotional state? Am I reacting from clarity or from activation? Have I fallen into any traps without noticing? This practice of regular self-examination prevents you from sleepwalking through your day on autopilot, reacting automatically to every stimulus. It keeps you conscious and present, which is the prerequisite for wise action. In the evening, the Stoics practiced a review of the day. Seneca wrote about examining the day's events, his responses to them, where he succeeded in maintaining virtue and where he failed. This is not about self-judgment or guilt. It is about learning. What situations triggered you today? How did you respond? What could you do differently next time? What patterns are you noticing? This nightly review is how you continuously improve your ability to recognize and outsmart emotional traps. You are building a database of self-knowledge that makes you increasingly sophisticated in your emotional intelligence. The Stoics also understood the importance of community and accountability. Epictetus taught in a school where students would discuss their struggles and support each other in living according to Stoic principles. While your core work must be done privately, having people in your life who understand what you are trying to achieve and can offer perspective when you are caught in a trap is valuable. These should be people who will tell you truth rather than just what you want to hear, who will challenge your victim narratives and call out your self-deception, who are committed to their own growth and can therefore support yours. As you develop skill in outsmarting emotional traps, you will notice several things changing in your life. First, you will experience far less drama. Without emotional reactivity fueling conflicts and poor decisions, your life becomes calmer and more focused. Second, your relationships will improve. When you are not constantly triggered and reactive, people enjoy being around you more. You become someone who can be counted on to remain stable under pressure. Third, your decision-making improves dramatically. Decisions made from clarity and principle consistently produce better outcomes than decisions made from emotional activation. Fourth, you will find that you have significantly more energy. Emotional reactivity is exhausting. The constant cycles of activation, drama, rumination, and recovery drain your vitality. When you stop feeding those cycles, you reclaim enormous amounts of energy that can be directed toward meaningful pursuits. Fifth, you will develop genuine confidence, not the fake confidence of bravado or performance, but the quiet confidence of someone who knows they can handle whatever arises because they have trained themselves to respond rather than react. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. This is the fundamental truth that all Stoic practice points toward. You cannot control most of what happens to you. You cannot control others' actions or the circumstances you find yourself in. But you can control your thoughts about these things, and therefore you can control your emotional responses to them. This is not a small thing. This is everything. This is the difference between being a leaf blown by every wind and being a tree with roots so deep that storms cannot move you. The emotional traps we have discussed today will continue to exist. They are part of the human condition, wired into our psychology by evolution and reinforced by culture. You will encounter them for the rest of your life. But you do not have to be caught by them. You can develop the awareness to see them coming. You can practice the disciplines that allow you to sidestep them. You can build the resilience that lets you recover quickly when you do occasionally get caught. This is the Stoic way, not perfection, not the elimination of all emotion or difficulty, but the development of wisdom and skill in navigating the challenges that every human faces. If you are ready to commit to this path, to developing the awareness and discipline that allow you to outsmart emotional traps and live from clarity and purpose, then subscribe to this channel. We are building a community of people who refuse to be victims of their own reactivity, who are committed to the difficult work of self-mastery. Share this with someone who needs to break free from emotional patterns that are controlling their life. Comment below with which emotional trap catches you most frequently and which practice you will use to address it. And remember, awareness is the first step. Every time you catch yourself in an emotional trap, even if you cannot fully escape it yet, you are building the skill that will eventually set you free. This is the work. This is the path. Walk it with patience and persistence, and you will discover a freedom that most people never experience.